Hi, welcome to another Resource for Granges program in which we try to provide inspiration and information that's helpful to Granges around our state. With me tonight are 9 or 10 members from Jonesboro Grange. The Jonesboro Grange has been making some real history lately, in a sense. They've been at least getting their name out there. They've been doing some great stuff. And I think we probably all would like to know how you guys are doing it. So let's start with a little background. Can you tell us a little bit about the history of your Grange?
Yes. Put that question to Jimmy Brand. Yep.
Yeah. What little history I know, I've already stated. I don't know much about the actual history other than when I joined at 14. And as I say, those members are all gone now. Now, we have 54 or 5 members. They don't all attend, but they support us 100%. And they attend all of the functions, many of the functions that we have, and they pay their dues, of course, and they're really helping, even though they may not be attending all the meetings. Mm-hmm. But as far as the actual history of when the Grange started, I don't know much about that, but we do have some books.
It started roughly 1906.
Right.
And in 2004, they had shut down for a while.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then they picked back up. I can't remember the year. Mm-hmm. But in 2019 is when the group got together to actually have to reactivate it again, get a grant. We were working, or I wasn't there at that point, but there was 13 members, I think, that got together, signed a paper saying that they were going to give it a whirl.
Great. So if I'm following your dates, in roughly 20 years, you've gone from barely being in existence and then starting with 13 members, and you now are at 50 or so.
Yeah, we're at like 55.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's incredible growth. How did the pandemic, how did COVID affect you as a Grange?
I believe COVID helped bring us together because we needed to help each other as a community, and we needed the community to see us and get involved in what we were doing and doing for the Grange and for the community, the fire department and everybody else. And so we moved outdoors. The Grange was there, but also our participating things, we did them outdoors. Our craft fairs, everything was outside, and everybody really was great about it.
How about that? That's really interesting, because most people, and of course all generalities are false, but most people felt like the pandemic hurt the Grange. And I think what I'm hearing you say is that it almost had the opposite effect on you. It actually brought you together and gave you more of a sense and a reason to do things. And I love it, moved outside, I mean, it's kind of like the outside restaurants.
It didn't explode, it imploded. It all brought everything together.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Every negative can be a positive, and every positive can be a negative, I guess. When we were talking before we actually started the interview, you had mentioned Rebecca was kind of instrumental and has been instrumental in keeping a lot of these things going. So talk to us a little bit about, and Rebecca, or anybody really, talk to us a little bit about some of the things you've got going on today.
Well, the big thing we have right now is the Crush Cancer 5K, which is taking place June 26th. And we have 246 participants in that road race. Yeah, it's phenomenal. We have over 40 sponsors within the community or across the state, and even out of state have reached out as sponsors. We have a Touch a Truck coming up on June 18th, which benefits the Jonesboro Fire Department. We have numerous craft fairs taking place this summer, along with the lobster feed in August, and our traditional events that we host every year are also on the schedule.
I know I've posted information about a lot of those events on the Maine State Grange website. So here's a word from our sponsor. If you're interested in those events, take a look at them on the Maine State Grange website. It really is impressive. And I think I heard a couple of things, Rebecca, in your answer. One is the kind of the last one I picked up on is how you seem to be collaborating, connecting. I'm not sure what the right C is here, but collaborating and connecting with other community organizations. You mentioned the fire department. And you're getting a tremendous, it sounds like you're getting a tremendous amount of support. I mean, all those sponsors and all those participants, I know it's probably not an easy question to answer in a couple sentences, but how do you do that? How do you make that happen?
We're talking about other people and other programs in this community.
Getting
The
that,
church,
yeah.
we work with them and do suppers to raise money, and we go half with them, breakfast and suppers and things like that, because our building isn't ready yet for that kind of a program. And they seem to like what we're doing.
Well, if you're making money for them, I guess that doesn't hurt, does it?
Also, a lot of our Facebook presence is bringing in sponsors.
Yes.
Local people are seeing that we're here, because you can't get to some places without going by our Grange. You can't.
I was going to ask you about social media. How big and you've kind of already answered the question, but talk a little more about how big of an impact is, and it sounds like it's primarily Facebook. How big of an impact, how much are you using that? How much does that help you?
We start posting events 3-4 months in advance, and we start hearing back. And a lot of our members reshare that information. So their groups, their circles get bigger and bigger and bigger. So that's how we're being seen outside of the state. And some of us have friends and family outside of the state.
And then
see through
people
Facebook.
donate towards some of our events over Venmo. And one of them was out of Virginia, and he donated some kids to have some raffle tickets or whatever.
Facebook is kind of one of any social media really is one of those double-edged swords. I mean, it has its negatives and its positives, but I can kind of relate to what you're saying, because in the Grange I'm involved in, Valley Grange up here in Guilford, we did a sock drive a couple of months ago now, back in the winter, to collect socks to gather for the kids at school. And we discovered there were a lot of kids coming to school without any socks. And we called it Operation Warm Toes. When we started putting out the need and the request for socks, we had a very similar experience once it hit social media. I had somebody from West Virginia send us pretty significant cash donation to buy socks for the kids. We had people shipping us socks. They'd order them on Amazon or whatever and have them shipped directly to us. So I do think, and we could probably have a really interesting conversation about how social media and the global economy, et cetera, has impacted the Grange, because our communities tend to get defined a little differently in some cases. The community isn't the little neighborhood of our, we have a couple of towns up here that had 2 or 3 Granges, because there were little communities within communities. And today we have just the opposite, where the community tends to be a much broader base of people. Why do you think people come to, I don't know, pick an event or two? I love your touch a truck thing. That is not certainly something that is unique. It isn't done a lot. Why do people come to things like this?
Well, what I liked up here is it's a small community and everybody stays together. But I'm a captain and safety officer for the volunteer fire department, but I'm also a Grange member. But all your Grange members here a lot of times will support us if we're on a fire. They'll bring us food and help us too. So we also have a photographer that's a member here for the local paper, but he's also a volunteer fire department for the other town. We're all mutual aid. So that's how Jonesboro Grange and the fire department work very well together. And then you have your selectman for the town of Jonesboro, which is also my chief, fire chief, so he helps. So we all work together as all the different towns around here, everybody comes together.
That's great.
And a lot of our events, or actually all of our events, are family oriented. We have some for the kids.
Oh, for the kids.
Just seeing their smiling faces is the best thing.
Right. And like I said, where we are positioned in our, on Route 1,
Right.
we are right there. You come through this area heading to one town or another, you can't help but go by us.
Yep.
And that often attracts a lot of attention, especially during the summer for our craft shows. We have a lot of people that, oh, I didn't know there was a craft show. I'm from out of state, I'm visiting, and look what I found. I found a craft show, unique Maine-made stuff, and they stop.
Right.
And that sometimes gets people's interest too that are local, because they go by and they see some program we're having.
Right, and another thing too was over a year ago, Rebecca had a big bale of hay, round bale of hay, brought in and put in front of the Grange Hall, which brought more attention than you can imagine, because it's been everything from a cow to a reindeer to a bunny to a turkey.
Yeah.
And it really, really earned its welcome in Jonesboro. And many times I've been out of town somewhere and somebody say, what's the bale of hay gonna be tomorrow?
So it's a rotating display kind of thing.
It really drew people, and more interest came into the Grange because of that bale of hay.
That's
That's lots of crates too for the.
And we do
Trade,
right. We
trade.
do the track tree.
And that draws a lot of people's attention when we're not
Oh,
there.
yeah.
They
It's really
stop, They
pretty.
take pictures in front of the tree. That
You
gets
have to work
posted
so
all
hard.
over, all over Facebook.
a couple of years ago, this pre-COVID, one of the kids from our high school, we have back then, and we are having it again this year for the first time in 2 years. We have I don't know what you call it, it's called a river festival, but it's kind of just a community gathering, and it gets to be a pretty big deal. There's a parade and so on and so forth. And I just love this. One of the kids, because I work at school as a substitute teacher, one of the high school kids made her mother rent her a square, a booth, and she put up a canopy, and she made it into a take your selfie here booth. She had all kinds of props and things. And that was it. That was all she was offering, basically. I mean, here's a place to stand and look cute and funny or whatever. And it was a pretty high traffic booth. So have your picture taken with the Grange Hall. I mean, that's just as good as Santa Claus, right? So you've actually, sounds to me like you've become a tourist attraction.
We at the Blue Hill Fair, they always call us and want to know if we want a booth. And we've been doing a booth for a number of years now, but we do it non-traditional.
Right.
They have a theme, and the first time we did it, they had a theme, and it was about Maine and the trails in Maine and Katahdin and stuff like that. So we didn't have all these baked goods and stuff, but when you sort of looked at it, it looked like you was looking at Mount Katahdin down a trail with all these names of towns and cities on it, and there was a little boat and motor sitting down at the end of it.
That's
And
great.
every time you go by, there was a crowd there.
That's fine. I do have a follow-up question I want to ask about that, but I just have to tell you quickly, that's exactly what Valley Grange does at our county fair. We do not do a traditional Grange booth, but we do a booth every year. And one of our challenges always is, what weird thing can we do this year? One of our most popular displays, and it was built on the idea that the Grange is an old organization with a historic heritage, was we did a then and now booth. So you would see an old, well, for kids today, an old dial phone, like a desk phone, sitting next to a cell phone. an old wringer, the old wringer washer that stood on the wash stand, sitting. I don't think we actually brought in a washing machine, but you know, photos and things like that, and it really attracted a lot of interest. So you know, I think sometimes I think we just need to. I love tradition. I think anybody that knows me at all knows that I'm a traditionalist. I love the ritual. I love what the Grange represents from a heritage point of view. But we really do have to get creative and start thinking outside the box on some of this stuff. And as I'm listening to you, and I love the energy I hear from you as a group, here's a question, and I'm not even sure if I know how to ask this, but if you had to describe Jonesboro Grange in one word or in one sentence or a couple of sentences, how do you think, well, first, I guess, how do you, but more importantly, how does the community see Jonesboro Grange? I mean, 150 years ago, the Grange was a farmers organization. You know, it was where farmers went to socialize and to put things together to further farming and agriculture. What's it look like today? Oh, I don't.
It's progressive too.
What's kind of interesting about the use of the word progressive is I did a presentation earlier this week at a historical society in southern Maine, because they wanted it, their historical society actually owns an old Grange hall, and that's where they meet. And they really wanted to learn more about the Grange. And what they found, one of the things they found interesting was how progressive the Grange was 150 years ago. I mean, it was very radical for its day. We're kind of boring by comparison in general. I mean, you guys maybe not, but in general, we're kind of boring. So I like the progressive thing. Progressive in terms of, talk some more about that.
Well, I mean, from a Grange that had been way down on its luck and not doing very good, to build up now to this number of members and doing what we're trying to do to show the community and everybody else, we're still here and we're still going.
we're not dead yet. Yeah, I've said, wouldn't it be sad if a Grange closed and nobody noticed? And that's, you know, I see these extremes, I think, where some Granges really struggle. Some Granges, and I know, we'll kind of keep them nameless, but I know a Grange, and I've actually said to them, you guys have been closed for 2 years, you just haven't admitted it. I mean, you haven't met, you're not doing anything. What's the point? I hesitate to use the word resurrection because of the religious connotations, but some Granges just need a resurrection. And it seems like you guys have done that. You have sort of, I don't know, risen from the ashes, so to speak. Maybe not literally, but from a fundamentally closed Grange 20 some years ago to probably one of the, I don't know about size, but certainly in terms of activity, one of the more progressive, to use your word, one of the more progressive Granges we have today. It's got to feel good. It's got to feel good. I mean, how do you find time? I guess, I think it was somebody mentioned that not all 50 members participate in everything. How does that work? I mean, when you do a program, does it tend to be like a handful of members that work on just that program? Do you have like groups of members doing different things, or is it everybody in the Grange working on each project? I don't know. John, you might be able to respond to that as master.
Yeah, I mean, some of the Granges have more of an interest in the activity than other ones. So that's that kind of thing. I kind of step back and let them, it's their Grange.
Yeah.
It's their Grange, and where they want it to go. And people just keep coming in on different activities that they just love.
Yeah.
And that way you got commitment.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite leadership expressions. I sometimes make the joke myself, even though I'm not the master of my Grange, but is, oh my gosh, I must go find my members because I'm their leader and they've left without me. And that's certainly the mark of a good leader, is that they do tend to allow people to really shine and do what they do best and what they enjoy the most. So certainly makes sense. So for those who haven't been watching from the beginning, I'm Walter Boomsbach, Communications Director for the Maine State Grange. We're having a Resources for Granges program meeting with a group of folks from Jonesboro Grange in Jonesboro, Maine. Let's talk a little bit about, well, we've talked about social media, and you've sort of hinted that your hall isn't necessarily in the greatest of shape. How are you managing? I don't know, how are you managing the hall? How are you, you're so busy doing for other people. How does that affect, I mean, are you working for yourselves as well? Does that make sense? I don't know if that question
Yes.
makes sense. Yep, go ahead. Rebecca, you look like you're.
One of the things we do is like a craft show. Our craft shows, the money raised from selling craft booths go to the Grange, and what the crafters get and other organizations that come in with a booth, that's theirs. We only take so much for the spot that they're in.
The table.
We will often have raffles inside. Some of the raffles are for people or organizations. Some of them are to raise money for what we need, like the roof or water or a bathroom that we're trying to set up. So we split our funds that we raise that way.
We did a big Easter basket raffle.
Remember that.
That brought in quite a bit
Yeah.
for us for some funding for the repairs, the doors, the roof that we're working on anyway.
And we rent the hall.
Yeah.
We have
Oh.
Wednesdays, we have a little dance class. There's a gal rents it Wednesday afternoon, and she has these cute little girls. They go in there and learn to dance and all of that cuteness, and that brings in a little bit of money. Not, not a great deal, but it helps her and helps us. And it's rented tomorrow for a wedding.
Yeah.
They know there's no water, but we do have outside facilities set up, so.
Okay.
Porta potties.
Well, congratulations, because it sounds like, yeah, and I can relate to this because of Valley Grange, but it sounds like you don't have the ideal hall, so to speak. But you're not using that as an excuse. You're not saying that that's a negative. You're actually kind of making it work for you.
Also, the church lets us use the hall here to do a lot of other things too. So that was we're grateful that they allowed that too.
Yeah. I think I've seen a couple of events you've had that you've actually had the event somewhere else. It hasn't been at your hall.
Right here.
School.
I think, oh yeah, the school.
School,
Yep.
and this is the Jonesboro Women's Center, which belongs to the church. And we use this hall for the suppers and like this meeting tonight, because they have the facilities so we can talk to you.
Okay. So you're not in the Grange Hall.
Yard sale, I've done a yard sale and other Grange members had pitched into, but I put it out there that I was trying to save the Grange building to redo it.
Mhm.
And I had houses that donated so much stuff for the yard sale. But I wanted to do it in March before anybody else started, which was a good timing because people been caught inside and not being able to get out. So it kind of brought a lot of people. I met a lot of people. It was really nice to see people smile and get out and enjoy themselves. So that raised over $3,000 for the Grange and the fire department because I'm on both. So I kind of had to divide my time because I can't do the fire department and the Grange. It would take me too much. So I put them together and that's how we worked it. So it really did. It really raised a lot of money that
A
way.
lot of people are really interested in the Grange. I've been down there before, working in the flower garden or the community garden, and people have stopped and said, can we go inside?
Yeah.
They want to go in and see. I said, yeah. And now, they kind of get a little tour.
Yep.
So they get to go in and see what's there.
And they love the metal.
Oh, the metal roof and all
Metal
that.
roof in there, and
Beautiful.
when they were coming in for the yard sale,
Most
they-
places have that. Yeah.
and they donated more because they want the roof
Yeah, they want
not
it
to
to
fall
stay.
apart and
Yep.
stuff, so it's
Preserve.
really nice.
Well, it is a historical building.
Yes, yeah, those good barn.
And when we first started, we met and we were talking about Jonesboro Grange. Now sitting there looking right underneath the exit door. I think my priority is over there before,
Right.
we have to have the facility back up for the meeting.
That's, it's interesting that that there's actually, and I don't want to go too far off topic here, but there's actually a hall in Fayette, Maine, a Grange Hall, was a Grange Hall, Starling Grange. When it closed as a Grange, the community just came together and said, we can't lose this building. And it's kind of been interesting to watch because they have literally, it's not a Grange, it's a former Grange Hall, but they have literally been restoring that building back to its original glory. And what's been sort of interesting about it is that in order for them to do that, they've ended up doing, as a group, they've ended up doing a lot of things the Grange would have done. So they've become a Grange in principle, but not in name, which is both unfortunate and good news. But I think it goes to some of the things we've been talking about, which is you have to you got to go where the people are. You've got to be relevant. You've got to realize that you can't, as much as we value the past, we can't live in the past. I know a lot of Granges that don't have any farmers in them. They have very little interest in the agricultural aspects. I love the bale of hay in the front yard. I gotta find somebody that can loan us a round bale of hay. And again, our Grange, we're just the opposite from you. We are out in what used to be the center of town. And there's nothing there anymore except a cemetery and a few houses. What happened when when the industrial age came in and the plants opened down by the river is effectively the center of town moved. So we're now kind of almost 4 miles really from the center of town. And you only go by us if you go by us. I mean, you don't happen to go by us. So that creates a very different challenge for us. So I guess we're running out of time here. We don't want to keep going all night. Well, we probably could go all night, but I'd like to get an answer from a couple of you on this question. What would you say to a Grange? Because I get calls and emails occasionally from Granges that are actually frustrated because they're not doing anything. And it seems like there might be 1 or 2 people that want to do something, but they're having trouble getting the momentum going. What would you say to a Grange that is struggling, but really wants to be a relevant and vibrant Grange? What advice would you give them?
Start small. We started small with the craft fair, and from there it just snowballed kind of out of control. The people wanted more from us. They wanted more events, and they look for that now. They look for that monthly event happening in that building. And I think people have grown to realize that it's so much more than a hall. It's what the community and society need. They need that gathering. They need that socialization, even if it's once a month. And they can look for that. And we are extremely blessed because we are on Route 1 and we have that prime location and we get a big crowd see the public. We see thousands of people that pass our hall every day, and we have that outreach. And I would tell the Granges, no idea is a bad idea. Start small. And from there, see what the public likes and grow off of that. And if an idea doesn't work, go another direction and just see what the public wants. Put the ideas out there and the public will let you know. They will let you know.
And I think too, also by bringing in free stuff for the kids brought a lot of people in because you brought the kids in too as well. By doing little free things for the kids, little games or anything, or like the pet show you did. How many different animals did we have at that pet show? We had a chicken on a leash. What else did we have? There was what? Cockroach.
I don't think anybody can see her. We have a very shy young Granger hiding behind. There she is. She kind of poked her head up. I asked her if she would be willing to be asked some questions during the interview, and she said no. But you do have some, and I don't know if maybe you don't know the number, but you do have quite a few kids that are involved in various ways. And I see a lot of heads nodding up and down. Yeah, which would imply certainly that you have a lot of younger folks, family folks. And I think it was Muriel that emphasized the fact that most of your events are family friendly. They tend to appeal to, was it you? I'm a little embarrassed here, but was it you guys that did the, was it Candyland?
Yeah.
Can somebody just, for those who may not know about it, can somebody just describe that quickly? What was the Candyland?
Sugar. Candy, baked goods.
Yeah, we sold like a little styrofoam box, like $5 a box. We raised money to the Grange, and they had people donate cookies and cake.
Yeah, we made.
Donate.
Yeah, people were donating, and they walked around the tables, but we had a little Candyland way around.
No.
And I am still hearing about that.
There's probably people still on sugar highs.
Yeah, but some people want more of the same treats they have. They keep trying to find those recipes.
Christmas program.
Yeah.
Well, I brought Santa Claus over at Mr. and Mrs. Claus on the fire truck for the kids. And that was a lot of people there for that.
Oh, that was a big
turnout.
That,
Our Grange was full.
that range was full, bulging right at the door.
I'll tell you, one of my fantasy programs, and this may be an idea for you guys, but one of my fantasy programs, and I don't know what you call it, but it would be to have, and because you were meeting outside so much, but to have a game day, a family game day that, not sitting playing on computers, but bringing back some of the old games, the old fashioned games of spinning that hoop on the stick thing and so on, and having it just be like a fun day, a family fun day.
Well, it was kind of fun when you did the lobster feed.
Last year.
Yeah, didn't they do all kinds of games?
They played games.
Yeah.
When I had pig out down there at the Grange Hall, that was totally potluck. They played games. They could play horse shows or ladder ball, anything. There's not enough room to play baseball or softball, but they played games.
Yeah, why not? Have fun. I just have to take a little diversion here, go into the weeds just for a minute, because I don't know if people have been noticing, but a lot of people keep looking at Rebecca when they talk about these ideas. And I know when we were talking before we started the program, that many of the members give her credit for bringing a certain amount of energy, and Rebecca has kind of something special going on in her life, and the Grange, I guess, is supporting you somewhat in that. So again, what I like about what you guys have been talking about is everything is win-win. It's not like, we're doing this for the Grange. It's like we're doing this for everybody. We're doing it for our community, for our friends, for our neighbors, whatever. Anyway, Rebecca, tell us a little bit about what's happening with you personally there.
So I was selected as Mrs. Maine International 2022, and in July, I will be traveling to Kingston, Tennessee, the 17th through the 23rd to represent the state of Maine in the Mrs. International pageant. And I will be competing against other married women from all over the globe, Asia, Australia, Mexico, across the United States. And I'll be representing the Grange and my kind of service project, Crush Cancer.
So instead of a sash saying you're Miss Such and Such, it's going to be a Grange sash?
No.
Probably not, right?
I do have my Grange pin on there, so it is on my sash, yes.
There you go. That's funny. Well, good luck with that. You tell me Tennessee's lovely this time of year. I actually have friends in Tennessee, so if you need a contact down there, let me know. We kind of have overstayed our welcome potentially. Is there anything anybody would like to add before we kind of close out? I suspect that I think I more than suspect that if another Grange was interested in learning more about what you do, they certainly can find out a lot by looking on Maine State Grange website. But I'm guessing that you guys would be happy to share, talk to other Granges that might be interested in some of the stuff you do. Any kind of closing thoughts, anything we left out, anything you'd like to add before we wind down here?
Well, we had the crab tree. And one of the things here, we're farmers, but now today's age, we're farming the sea, and the sea ocean is only 20 feet from the back of the building.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. We do an ag program at school. I'd love to talk to you about sometime because even though we don't have farmers in our Grange, we well, COVID has kind of put a lot of things on hold, but we go into the schools pre-K through grade 3 and do agricultural projects with the kids to get them, you know, my specialty is making butter with the second graders. And it's really interesting because we're in a rural community, but you know, where does the butter come from? The grocery store. Chocolate milk comes from brown cows. So yeah, you know, the agricultural heritage that we have is just, to me, is just amazing. I think we can learn so much from nature. You know, gosh, just drew a blank on the name here. Hannibal, when he was going to cross the Alps with the elephants, allegedly somebody said, "How are you going to do that? How are you going to get across the Alps?" And he said, "If I can't find a way, I'll make one." And I think that that's kind of a message for Grangers, and it sounds to me like that's what you guys have done. You haven't been trying necessarily finding ways to do things. You've been making ways to do things. And I certainly congratulate you and the other 40 some members of Jonesboro Grange for bringing the Grange to life, making and keeping it relevant. So keep going, keep going. You'll end up being, gosh, I saw a video just recently that reminded me the Holton Grange, which Holton is not exactly a thriving metropolis, once had the largest Grange in the world. It doesn't exist anymore, but I sometimes wonder, what is the largest Grange in the United States these days? So anyway, thank you. Thanks for being willing to share with us. Maybe we could do this again sometime. And to our listeners and watchers, thank you for joining us today. We hope you found this helpful and encouraging. If you're watching this on the Maine State Grange YouTube channel, remember that there are additional resources on the Maine State Grange website. That's mainstategrange.org. If you have ideas for future topics, you can send an email to me, webmaster@mainstategrange.org, or submit it through the website. I think I've kind of coined a new motto for the Grange, that we're here for each other. And that's the idea behind this program. So while this hasn't exactly been a meeting, it seems appropriate to close with something that's probably familiar to everyone, as there is no more work for us today, and we are again to separate. Let us not forget the principles of our order. Let us add dignity to labor, and in our dealings with our fellow men, be honest, be just, and fear not. I love this next part. Let us be quiet, peaceful citizens, feeding the hungry, helping the fatherless and the widows, and keeping ourselves unspotted from the world. A good patron places faith in God, nurtures hope, dispenses charity, and is noted for fidelity.